Simply start pouring your wine and pay close attention to the wine that is coming out of the bottle, and keep pouring. Hi there, this is Julien, and this is a video where you'll learn the essentials about when and how to decant wine, which wine you should decant or not, etc. But before we get into the video, I must tell you that the following video is brought to you by what is possibly the best wine club in America. A wine club I work closely with as a consultant and video maker that is called the Bonner Private Wine Club. So every quarter we select 6 bottles of wine from genuine, authentic producers that have a real passion for what they do. We taste dozens and dozens of wines to find the absolute best ones for the price, so you get the best value for money. We bring in something that you cannot find anywhere else, and that is more interesting. And every quarter you get a selection from a different country: France, Italy, Spain, Australia, Argentina and beyond. So we explore together the entire world of wine, and it's just an amazing journey to share for all our members and for ourselves to share this experience with you as well. And we educate our members about wine as well with the club's Wine Explorers newsletter as well. We bring you some really nice wine stories from around the world, as well as videos such as the one that you are about to watch that our club members receive every week. Anyhow, to learn more and get early exclusive access to more videos like this one and delicious wine, of course, check out the link in the video description, have a read and find out if this club might be for you. I hope to see you and share more with you there anyhow, but let's get into the video. This is a video I made a few months ago for the Bonner Private Wines to give you a little taste and share the knowledge that we give our members through that video. This is about the fascinating things that you must know about decanting wine. So many questions about decanting wine, most of them are answered there. Let's go. Bonjour, hello and welcome to your new wine video. I'm your host Julien Michael, and today we are going to be talking about the basic principles of decanting wine, when to do it and how to do it. So decanting wine is one of those gestures that you see wine professionals and sommeliers and wine connoisseurs do, but that can be a little intimidating. It can be a little daunting to know when to decant a wine, which wines you should decant and how to do it, right? In fact, decanting wine doesn't have to be all that complicated. The theory of it can be simplified and summarized into just a few simple rules. In reality, most wine consumers, even average wine consumers, could improve greatly their tasting experiences by decanting their wine a little more often. So here I gathered a few rules of thumb to help you understand what decanting does to your wine and how to do it properly. As always, to keep things simple, I've broken things down into 4 small chapters that are digestible for you, and let's start with the first one: why decanting wine. So decanting wine has 2 main functions, and the first one is to aerate the wine or introduce some oxygen back into the wine. A little bit like when you pour a glass of wine, the wine gets in contact with the air, with the oxygen in the air, and you would have noticed that sometimes when you pour a wine during a dinner, the wine evolves all the way through the dinner and doesn't taste or smell exactly the same way at the beginning of the meal or at the end. Or you would have noticed that if you leave some wine, a bottle of wine open for the next day, it's going to change completely, and that's due to the presence and the action of oxygen on the wine. So wine, and you've probably heard this, is a beverage that is full of antioxidants, and this is particularly true for red wines that are full of what we call tannins. You know, those molecules that give you a drying finish, a drying sensation on the palate, and that give a lot of this dark color to red wines. Those tannins love absorbing a lot of oxygen, and because we seal obviously our bottles of wine generally under cork, and because of these antioxidants, the aromas, which are other molecules that are found in the wine, get somewhat asphyxiated from the lack of oxygen inside the bottle, and they become a bit shy, a bit introvert. They lose their natural fragrance, the exuberance of their expression, the fruitiness, the spices and the herbs get tamed down by the lack of oxygen inside the bottle. So introducing some oxygen brings back the natural chemical form of the aromas into the wine and the natural fragrance and expression of grapes and fermented grape juice. The second function of decanting wine is to eliminate the sediments that may have formed, particularly in older wines, at the bottom of the bottle. And we will see this when I decant a bit later on this bottle of 1991 Burgundy Pinot Noir wine. Sometimes wine is not a perfectly stable solution. Some say that it's almost like a living thing. Because it's not perfectly stable, at least the good wines are not perfectly clean and perfectly stable. Some of the tannins and a bit of the acids into the wine tend to precipitate, get a bit bigger, form crystals that fall down at the bottom of the wine. So we want to eliminate them before pouring them, so we eliminate as we decant into the decanter, and we will see this in a minute. So this tells us why we decant wine, but the whole important question is also which wines should we decant or not. Decanting is mostly relevant for red wines, and you would have noticed that I only have red wines here, but which should you decant or not? Generally speaking, the bright, crisp, fruity and light reds, and especially the young ones, do not benefit so much from being decanted because they don't have as many antioxidants and as much power into them that needs to be liberated. So those would be the Pinot Noirs or the Beaujolais, and also some of the most affordable ones. Don't worry about decanting them, they're already quite vibrant and fruity as soon as you open the bottle. The young reds, but the ones that are very dense and rich, just like this one, full of tannins and antioxidants, the ones made from Cabernet Sauvignons, the Merlots, the Malbecs, the big-bodied, richly bodied wines, those, even if they're young, can benefit from decanting to give them a bit more aeration and liberate all the power and the fruitiness of their aromas. But decanting is going to be even more beneficial for the very old or the older reds because they have been trapped inside the bottle for a long time, so the aromas have gotten really shy and asphyxiated, and it's going to take much longer, much more oxygen to liberate all the potential of their aromatic expression. While I talk only about reds here, some whites, some old white wines like old Chardonnays for example, or old Sauterne wines, sweet dessert wines, old ports as well, may benefit from being decanted, but with a bit more caution. Some go as far as decanting champagne, old vintage champagne wines as well. This leads us to another very important question: when should you decant your wine, or how long before pouring the wine you should decant it? In absolute, I shouldn't be telling you that there is one right moment to decant a wine that would work for every one of them. Every wine is different depending on its age, depending on its origin, the grape variety, as we've seen, depending on its tannin concentration. But that's exactly where I think a lot of people get confused and they end up not decanting any of their wines. Generally speaking, most of the wines we've talked about benefit from half an hour of decanting time and aeration time prior to serving. The problem is, if you decant too early, that oxygen that initially liberates the aroma may start destroying them and destroying the qualities and degrading the qualities of your wine. If you decant too late, the oxygen won't have time to react and interact with the wine, so it won't have such a beneficial effect. Half an hour, generally speaking, works on virtually every wine. But of course, if you really know a specific wine, you have several bottles of it, you have a case of it, and you are really used to enjoying it on a regular basis, next time you taste it, time how long it takes it to really open up and to really shine through and reach its peak of aromatic expression, and this is always going to be your best decanting time, more than the half an hour thumb rule that I've just given you. But let's move on to how do we practically decant a wine. You said, Julien, that it's easy. Let's see how it's done. So if you have a young wine just like this one, it is likely not to have any deposit at the bottom of it, so you don't need to worry too much about it. Just take your decanter and pour your wine into it. You do want to aerate it in the process, which is going to help it breathe and aerate much better. But otherwise, there's not a whole lot to it. At the very end, maybe pay attention to make sure there isn't actually any deposit into it. And that's about it. Just leave it rest for half an hour and then it's ready for enjoyment. But if you have an older wine, it is much more likely to have some deposit at the bottom, and that's when you want to pay a little bit more attention than what I've been doing just before. So you want to have a bright source of light, a lot of lighting. Some people even use a candle or a torch. The idea is that you want to be able to see the wine as you pour it. But before this, I should definitely emphasize on the fact that you want to leave your bottle standing for at least 1 hour before decanting the wine to allow all the deposits to fall down the bottom. If you do have one of those basket cradle that the sommeliers use, you can also use that, but you really want to make sure that all the deposit hasn't been shaken. You don't want to shake the bottle around before decanting. Make sure everything has fallen down the bottom so you get as a minimum waste as possible. Once this is done, you simply start pouring your wine and pay close attention to the wine that is coming out of the bottle, and keep pouring as long as the wine is clear. It is still very clear here, so I can still keep going. Essentially, you want to leave the deposits in the bottle, so you should start at some point the wine getting a little bit hazy, and that's when you want to stop pouring. Here we go. It is becoming a little bit hazy. There's actually not a whole lot of deposit in here, but I can see that now there is a bit of depositing, so I've probably lost half a glass here, but at least my wine in my decanter is now perfectly fine for enjoyment. So if I pour this wine now, it's now perfectly clear in my glass of wine. It does have a bit of a brownish color because this is a 30-year-old wine after all, but it's now perfect for enjoyment. I should say that I should wait for half an hour or so before really enjoying it. And this is it, really. There's not much more to it, really. Now in half an hour we are going to have a wine that is much more expressive. I hope this has helped demystifying what is decanting. I hope this has explained how much of a gain you can have from what is at the end of the day a relatively simple gesture, but that is definitely going to make a difference through your tasting experiences. If you are wondering about the different types of decanters that I've got here, about the different shapes, I would say and advise that at the end of the day they're all relatively similar in terms of the surface of contact, and they all do, generally speaking, a great job at aerating the wine. So I would advise just pick one that you like in terms of the shape, and also think about one that you're not gonna mind cleaning. They can be a little bit tricky to get into and get really clean, so maybe think about this when you choose your decanter. That was me for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon in the next one. Au revoir. Cheers. Every quarter we select 6 bottles of wine imported from the US